Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Ethna. Thank you so much for joining me this weekend. Sorry I couldn't get to you last weekend for an episode. My family had a very busy weekend. My older brother was getting married, so we were doing all the preparations for the wedding last weekend, so I do apologize that we couldn't have an episode last week, but Logan and I are back this week for another episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Now, we have a lot to dive into this week. Unfortunately, the week we missed was the week of the NBA trade deadline, so Logan and I are going to keep you up to date with what's going on, some of the big-time moves. We're going to obviously get into the Cavs and what's going on with them. We'll also talk Indians. Indians' regular season is finally underway, so Logan and I will break down their opening game against Detroit for you. We also have some soccer news with both the Premier League and MLS, so we have an action-packed episode for you today on the Cleveland Sports Show. Let's get that intro started for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Ethna of NordoniaHills.News, and the Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. Hello everyone, welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Ethna. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today to listen to Logan and I. We're going to talk some awesome sports that are going on right now. Some great things going on. Obviously, NBA trade deadline just happened. We'll get you up to date with what happened with the new teams and the new look teams. We'll talk about the Cavs and how they've been kind of up and down recently. We'll also get you up to date with the Indians as their regular season has finally started. But you know how we start every Cleveland Sports Show episode. We have to start with our sports fact of the day. Now, this sports fact of the day takes us back a while, actually, all the way back to 1930. Let's get you updated with the sports fact of the day. So today is April 3rd, 2021. And on this day, back in 1930, April 3rd, 1930, the Stanley Cup Final at the Montreal Forum in Montreal, Canada, the Canadiens beat the Boston Bruins 4-3 for a 2-0 series sweep and their third championship. That was the third championship out of the 24 total championships the Montreal Canadiens have up to date. That championship in 1930, as I mentioned, was the third championship for the Canadiens. That would be the first year of a back-to-back, as the Canadiens would win the Stanley Cup once again in 1931. The first Stanley Cup championship for the team was back in 1915. Now, also on that 1930 roster that defeated the Boston Bruins 4-3 for that third franchise Stanley Cup championship included Silvio Mantha, who was actually the captain of the squad. Georges Mantha was also on the roster. Marty Burke, Jerry Carson, Gord Fraser, and George Hainsworth were some other notable names on that roster for the Montreal Canadiens way back in 1930. So now you can tell all your friends, hey, I learned something new today. I learned that on April 3rd, 1930, the Montreal Canadiens won their third franchise Stanley Cup out of 24 total that they have up to this point. Now, let's get you updated with some soccer news as the Premier League standings are taking shape once again. We have a lot of news to discuss in the Premier League, a busy weekend of Premier League soccer as well. Overall standings, Manchester City currently in first place. Looks like they're going to run away with the Premier League here. They have a comfortable 14-point margin lead over them. In second place, inner city rival Manchester United Manchester United with 57 points, with 16 wins, 9 draws, and 4 losses. Leicester City come in at third place. They have 56 points, with 17 wins, 5 draws, and 7 losses. Chelsea in fourth place looks like they're going to have a strong push to the playoffs. 14 wins, 9 draws, 7 losses for Chelsea with 51 total points. West Ham come in at 14 wins, 7 draws, and 8 losses for 49 points. And to round out our top 6 for you this week, it's Tottenham Hotspur taking that 6th spot with 29 matches played so far. They have 14 wins, 6 draws, and 9 losses on the season for a combined total of 48 points. Stats in the Premier League thus far. Harry Kane and Mohamed Salah right now are tied for top goal scorer. Each of those two players with 17 goals on the season so far. Bruno Fernandes of Manchester United comes in at second place with 16 goals on the season. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Patrick Bamford both come in at third place, each of those players with 14 goals. Harry Kane and Kevin De Bruyne still are in the assist leaders in the Premier League. Harry Kane, though, still number 1. Kane with 13 assists on the season thus far. Kevin De Bruyne of Manchester City with 11 assists. Bruno Fernandes and Jack Grealish tie for third place this week for assists in the Premier League. Overall matches going on in the Premier League right now. We've got the schedule for you. So we finally had some matches. They resumed this weekend. Chelsea lost to West Brom by a final score of 5-2, a surprising upset. But they're still the 4th seed, so they're still safe. Leeds United taking on Sheffield United. We're live 86th minute of that game going on right now, and Leeds United have a 2-1 lead over Sheffield. Leicester City are taking on Manchester City today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have Arsenal going up against Liverpool, and then you can celebrate your Easter Sunday with more Premier League action. Southampton will be taking on Burnley tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Newcastle will be going up against Tottenham tomorrow at 9:05. Aston Villa taking on Fulham at 11:30. Manchester United going up against Brighton tomorrow at 2:30, and then Monday we have a couple of games for you as well in the Premier League. Everton facing off against Crystal Palace, and Wolves going up against West Ham. So, Easter is a big holiday that focuses on ham for, the family meal. So guess what? Tomorrow you're going to have Aston Villa, Fulham, and then Wolves going up against West Ham. So how about that? 2 hams for you on Easter Sunday. It doesn't get better than that in the Premier League. Now, soccer news doesn't stop there for this week, ladies and gentlemen. We've got more to discuss. The MLS is finally back. A new season will be kicking off, no pun intended. Of course there's a pun intended, just kidding. It's the Cleveland Sports Show. Now, yes, new MLS season will be kicking off in a few weeks here. Friday, April 16th is the start date this year for the new MLS season. Obviously, the Columbus Crew, the defending MLS champion, will begin their title repeat quest on April 18th. That'll be a home game against the Philadelphia Union. Officially, the games will begin Friday, April 16th. It will include games Houston Dynamo going up against the San Jose Earthquakes, and then the Seattle Sounders facing off against Minnesota United. But the Columbus Crew, as I mentioned, April 18th, that's the big day for Ohio soccer fans. The defending MLS champion, Columbus Crew, going up against Philadelphia in their brand new stadium in downtown Columbus. That should be an awesome game for us to see. The other Ohio team, FC Cincinnati, will be kicking off their season on the road. They'll be in Nashville on Saturday, April 17th, 8:30 p.m. It will be the kickoff time. That will be when FC Cincinnati begin their schedule. Now, it's time to bring in Logan Purcell for some NBA news. And joining me, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Logan Purcell, back with us for another episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Logan, first and foremost, it's been a while. How have you been doing this last couple of weeks?
I'm doing all right. yourself?
I've been doing pretty well. I'm getting excited now that the Indian season is finally underway, but I'm also a little bit sad about how the Cavs have been doing their last 4 games, Logan. Last 4 games, all 4 losses. So let's talk about NBA basketball, all that good stuff right now. Let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll get into some March Madness, talk about that for a little bit. But right now, let's talk about the Cavs, because it's definitely been a very, very rough patch for them in these last few games here. 2 nights ago against the Philadelphia 76ers, Logan, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting them to win that game. They lost by 20. It was actually a rather competitive game for the most part, but the 76ers just pulled away in the third quarter, outscoring the Cavs 27-17 and then 29-21 in the fourth quarter. Look at the stat line for the Cavs. Colin Sexton, the leading scorer, with 24 points. Darius Garland, here's what concerned me, Logan. 33 minutes, he did have 8 assists, but only 6 points. Dean Wade, Logan, was the second leading scorer for the Cavs. Dean Wade with 16 points. I mean, I understand, yes, you could say this was a competitive game for the most part, but some of these performances by the Cavs were just subpar, and I'm looking at guys like Taurean Prince, again, only 6 points, 21 minutes. Darius Garland, that's 6 points. I mean, Cedi Osman, only 6 points. I mean, what's going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers? What happened to them in this game? Because I thought that this was a rather competitive game, and I know the 76ers have a little bit more firepower, but I thought if the Cavs, Garland and Prince and all these guys, they performed at a little bit higher of a level, the Cavs could have walked away from this game with a win. So your thoughts on this Sixers-Cavs game, Logan? What kind of went wrong for the Cavs?
Well, talking about the Cavs the past couple weeks, unfortunately, I feel like a broken record. The inconsistency just continues over and over and over again. I mean, we saw Garland. Last time we talked, had a great week, averaging, over 20 points, almost 10 assists. He was having a great week, and now he scores 6 points.
Yeah.
And 7 turnovers as well. So you talk about the 8 assists, he also had 7 turnovers to tag along with those 8 assists. So, I mean, the inconsistencies are just always happening with this young team. They can't seem, clearly Colin Sexton is probably the most consistent offensive scorer for Cleveland.
Yeah.
But, I mean, until they can get a second dude, whether that's Garland, whether it ends up being, Okoro, Allen, I don't know who it is, but they better figure it out because, I mean, Colin Sexton can only do so much by himself, especially considering the fact that we don't see a lot of guys that are 6'3", scoring, 30, 40 points unless, alongside guys like Damian Lillard and Steph Curry who are another level. But Colin Sexton, I don't get that kind of vibe from him. He's just not that guy. But they need to get a second guy because, like I said, I sound like a broken record at this point. It feels like we're having the same conversation every other week about this Cleveland Cavaliers team.
Yeah, and also, Logan, your thoughts on the acquisition of Isaiah Hartenstein at the trade deadline. The Cavs give up JaVale McGee for Isaiah Hartenstein. To me, Logan, this was just clearly a move of old age versus youth. I think the Cavs just wanted youth, and the best they could get was Isaiah Hartenstein from the Denver Nuggets. What kind of impact, if any, do you think that he can bring to this team moving forward?
I do agree with you with the young statement, but I also believe that it was also a possible move to open up some minutes for Jared Allen. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's been playing a lot of minutes at that starting position, but any extra minutes you can get for a bigger guy like Allen is going to be valuable minutes that you can get. But from a standpoint of what kind of value he's going to bring, I think he'll bring some good value as maybe a stretch 4. He's not a sharp shooter per se. He's not a great shooter, but he can hit them when he needs to. I mean, he's not one of those guys that's going to take 4 or 5 a game. He'll give you 2 or 3, but he'll hit both of them or all 3 of them. He's just that kind of guy. I think he'll add some size to this Cleveland team that has very small guards, but they need some big guys to help out Allen.
Yeah. Let's talk about, Logan, kind of the past few games for the Cavs. We mentioned that Sixers game. I'll tell you, heartbreaking loss for the Cavs last weekend, Logan, against the Sacramento Kings. Cavs lost that one at the buzzer to Harrison Barnes, 100-98. And I saw the replay from that Harrison Barnes buzzer beater, Logan. And I'll have to say, the Cavs honestly deserved to lose that game the way they defended that final play. I understand you put 2 guys on Harrison Barnes who had that final shot, but Logan, I am baffled to understand why no one was guarding the inbounder. That's like, giving a quarterback in football just a free pass. Like just give him a free Hail Mary down the field. That's basically what the Cavs did. Again, I understand the double teaming of Harrison Barnes, but you have to guard the inbounder. I mean, I feel like that's a fundamental step that they completely messed up on. Your thoughts on that final play against the Kings, Logan?
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you from that standpoint, but I mean, at the same time, you got to break it down like this. I mean, everybody talked about, we heard Paul George anytime, Devin Booker in the bubble. If you remember when he hit that insane fadeaway over Paul George at the buzzer to beat him.
Yeah.
Paul George said I don't really care how I play defense. It's a bad shot. So to me, I break it down like this. It's a really, really underrated scorer hitting a really bad shot when it matters. So to me, I mean, frankly, you're right about the inbound pass, but I'm not sure that would have made a difference on whether he makes that shot or whether he even gets the ball, period.
Well, I mean, because wouldn't you say? I mean, if you have a Cavs player guarding the inbounder, I think it would be a little bit harder for that pass to get to Harrison Barnes' hands, right? I mean,
true, yeah. You can look at it like that, but you can also look at it from the idea of if he's not double teamed, it's even easier for him to get the ball. Maybe he only has one hand in his face instead of two. So really, you can play these what-if scenarios all you want, but to me, that's a really good score hitting a really bad shot over two defenders who were playing good defense at the time. But you are right with the inbound idea, but to me, you can't really play those ups and downs because it's going to happen here and there. I mean, we've seen Damian Lillard hit shots from half court at the buzzer, so it's just a matter of him hitting a shot that he practices every day.
And that's the beauty of the NBA. You just never know when those shots are going to go in, when they're not going to go in. But I definitely think we can agree, Logan, definitely a tough loss for the Cavs. Last Saturday against the Kings, lost that 100-98. Cavs had a couple of other poor performances. They played against the Lakers last Friday, the night before that Kings loss, without LeBron or Anthony Davis. Cavs still lost by 14, 186, and then the Cavs blown out by the Utah Jazz. Logan, only 75 points in the first half of play. The Cavs only had 34 points throughout in the first half in total. Colin Sexton with 20 points. He was the leading scorer for the Cavs. Logan, this Jazz team clearly is excellent in every way. They have a very strong chemistry. I'm very happy that everyone is safe after that plane experience they had this past week. But overall, the Utah Jazz, Logan, looked terrific. But I really feel that this game, once again, just bogged down to effort. Was that the same? Was that your take on this game as well?
Yeah, to a degree, I would say that was my take on it. But at the same time, I noticed a little bit of consistency in the Cavs lineup recently that has kind of baffled me. But the Cavs haven't had Jared Allen for the past 3 games, and they have yet to score 100 points without him. They've been close, but they have yet to score 100 points without him. So it kind of makes me wonder if maybe he's even having more of an offensive impact than just his scoring and rebounding. I think, you can talk about effort all you want, but I mean, you've got Rudy Gobert on the inside who ended up with 18 points and 17 rebounds.
Yes.
On top of it. So, I mean, unless you've got another 7-foot guy on the floor with him, because their tallest guy was Isaiah Hartenstein in that game, in the starting lineup. That's not exactly a big team when you're going against a 7'1" Rudy Gobert, who's been, reigning defensive player of the year. I don't even, you can talk about effort all you want, but if you can't match up, then unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do about that.
Let's talk about the Utah Jazz on the other side of things here, Logan. For a few weeks here, these last few weeks, I've kind of been debating, if the Lakers are healthy, they're ready to go, are the Jazz the biggest threat to the Lakers in the Western Conference? I think it's a very legitimate argument you can make now. I would still say it's the Los Angeles Clippers, just because I think with the acquisition of Rajon Rondo, and we'll get to that a little bit later, I think that's really going to help them get compete against the Lakers. Maybe not win, but I think the Clippers still have the best shot. But Jazz are right there, Logan. Do you consider the Jazz the top threat in the Western Conference to the Lakers repeating?
I personally, I really do consider them the top threat because, you want to talk about the Clippers all you want, but I mean, you got to face the facts. They lost to the Denver Nuggets last season, and Denver's no joke because they're not a joke. I mean, Nikola Jokic is going to be the MVP this year, more than likely.
What about Damian Lillard? You don't think Damian Lillard?
He's got to be the dark horse for the MVP. Nobody's talking about him. Everybody is Harden and Lillard.
Yeah.
Jokic is there. Jokic is right there to me. He's number one. I mean, he's a 7'1" walking triple double. So you can look at it any way you want, but Jokic is the MVP. And the Clippers, they lost to them last year, but the Jazz are just so deep.
Yeah.
They have so much depth, and I do believe Rajon Rondo is going to make a very large impact on the Clippers. But I mean, what it boils down to is, can you get it done when it matters most? Paul George has never gotten it done in the playoffs. Never. He has never been that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I still hold out hope for him, though. I think that this is. I mean, if this isn't the year that he finally resurrects that, becomes playoff Paul George, like a quality version of that. If he doesn't play well in the playoffs this year, I think the criticism is lamented now. I'm going to still give Paul George a shot this year, but after this year, I think the Clippers, Logan, I think it's all in this year or it's over. To me, that's my thought on the Clippers. But you were talking about the Jazz, so I'll let you finish up on them real quick.
No, I think the Jazz have so much depth at the wing position as well. I mean, I already talked about the reigning MVP at center and Rudy Gobert, but, that kid Donovan Mitchell ain't no joke either. He's not hot. He can get it done. He's a 3-level scorer. I think he's one of the most underrated scorers because of his youth. And the fact that, the Jazz are 37-11 right now in the NBA. Yeah. Number one, that is just amazing. And everybody's talking about the Clippers and the Lakers. And it's, to me, if the Lakers are healthy, there's no competition. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Jazz have a chance, but I don't see it happening. I think it's going to be the Lakers coming out the West, assuming everybody's healthy. The Jazz, to me, have the best opportunity.
Let's get a little bit, we'll talk about NBA trade deadline stuff in a little bit here, Logan. One more topic I want to talk about with the Clippers. Do you think that this year for them it's all in? If this is their last shot, really, because I feel like if they don't win it this year, or at least get to the conference finals, I mean, there are going to be some legit questions that people are going to be asking. So, is that your mindset when it comes to the Clippers?
Yeah. To me, it's do or die this year because at the end of the day, you got to look at it like this: if Anthony Davis and LeBron James and their future in LA was, questioned, I mean, you could make an argument, hey, you got next year, maybe LeBron goes elsewhere, unlikely but possible. Maybe AD decides he's not feeling LA, wants to go elsewhere and take control there. But LeBron's locked in for another 2 years, and Anthony Davis just signed a max contract.
Yeah.
So if you don't win it this year, you're never gonna win it. This is their best opportunity, and I believe with LeBron James being out, he might not. I mean, LeBron James is about as bionic as any human could possibly be. But anybody can take injuries. LeBron he's not young. He's not young. He's 18 years into the NBA. This dude is not as durable as he used to be. You got to give him credit where it's due, though. He's continued to do his job. But,
yes.
I mean, age wears people down. So if LeBron is not 100% going into the playoffs, and this is my opinion, I've told everybody this. If Anthony Davis or LeBron James is not 100% going into the playoffs,
it's over.
They're not getting out the West.
Yeah, no way.
Now, to me, I have also made the argument that if Andre Drummond plays like he did in Cleveland, you can suffer an 80 to 90% healthy Anthony Davis. Because that means an 80 to 90% healthy Davis means you're getting 20 out of him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Versus, but I mean, I'll take a 17 and 13 out of Andre Drummond any day of the week. So to me, I think Andre Drummond gives them a little bit of cushion there to have a little bit of aches and pains with Anthony Davis. But there's not a lot of room for error over in LA at Staples Center.
Yeah.
Not just for the Clippers either. Because if they don't do it this year, honestly, I hate to say it, but blow it up. It just didn't work. Blow it up.
Yeah, it's definitely, and with so many draft picks the Clippers gave up, it's definitely going to be hard if they ever do find themselves in a rebuilding situation. Let's talk about the Cavs. Wrap up that topic real quick here, Logan. Cavs tonight in Miami. They'll be taking on the Heat. That'll be the first game of a three-game road trip for the Cavs. Tonight against the Heat. Then on Monday, they'll be in San Antonio taking on the Spurs. They'll end their three-game road trip in Oklahoma City with a matchup against the Thunder before returning home next Saturday for a matchup with the Toronto Raptors. So in this quick little three-game road trip here, Logan, what do you want to see from Cleveland? They have a tough opponent tonight in Miami who just got Victor Oladipo. They look revamped, ready to go. So what do you want? I definitely see some definite possible wins here, especially against the Spurs and the Thunder. So what do you want to see from the Cavs in this three-game trip, Logan?
I'm going to need to see a little bit of consistency from Larry Nance. He's one of the most inconsistent players this year, but he's got so much potential.
Yes.
He has the possibility of being, a very solid starting power forward, but he just cannot figure it out. Whether that's from three-point land, whether that's driving to the basket, whether that's, going back and doing what his dad used to do and dunking over people. But he's got to figure it out because he has just been up and down. He's been probably more of a roller coaster, unfortunately, this year than Darius Garland.
Do you think that's due to his wrist injury though? Because he did hurt his wrist earlier in the season. Do you think that injury has? I mean, I would think that plays the majority role in that.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely say that any day of the week, but at the same time, I mean, if it's really hurting him that bad, then he probably should be resting it and not being forced to play. He shouldn't be pushing himself through it. I mean, if LeBron James has an ankle injury, are you going to play him through it? No, he's 35 years old.
There's too much risk.
You force a young guy through his injury because, just like any sport, if you push through an injury, even if you're young, you could screw something up.
Right.
So to me, I want to see some consistency out of him, but I mean, you can also point to Chetty Osman and Taurean Prince, who's seemingly not even doing anything since coming to Cleveland. But there's just a lot of guys that I need to see some consistency out of, but we're going to have some problems.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting three-game road trip for the Cavs. As I mentioned, they'll be in Miami tonight against the Heat. Then Monday in San Antonio against the Spurs. Final game of the road trip will be in Oklahoma City on Thursday against the Thunder. So we're going to talk a little bit here about some the biggest NBA trades from the trade deadline, Logan. Then we'll get into some March Madness here. Let's talk about the NBA trade deadline. First, big winners in the trade deadline, the Denver Nuggets. You were talking about, Jokic being pretty much leader in MVP. I would say it's Damian Lillard, but that's the fun of the MVP race. But I can definitely tell you that Nikola Jokic got some help. Aaron Gordon is now part of the roster, so I like what the Nuggets have now. You have Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon. This is definitely a team that's not only much bigger and can be more physical, but now they're also young. So I think this can really be a foundation the Nuggets can build off of for years to come. What are your thoughts on Aaron Gordon going to the Nuggets?
Yeah, I think it makes them probably, frankly, one of the biggest winners of this entire trade deadline because, it completely fits into their scheme. You've got a guy like Jamal Murray, who, as you mentioned, he was a superstar. It wasn't a star, he wasn't an all-star. He was a superstar.
Yes.
In the bubble last year. I mean, he was sensational. He's been struggling a little bit this year, a bit inconsistent, but despite that fact, he's still playing at a pretty solid level. Not all-star yet, but he's playing pretty well. You talk about Jokic. I don't even need to talk about Jokic. I already said it, 7-foot walking triple-double MVP. I think it just fits into their scheme perfectly. Aaron Gordon is a rim-running threat who can easily give you 25-30 on any given night against any given player. He's a lengthy dude that is physical defensively. He's got a lot of upside to him, and in reality, they didn't give up that much for him.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be an interesting team going forward. Another possible team that could upset either of those two LA teams. So excited to see what the Nuggets can do, especially with Mike Malone at the helm. Also, Logan, Boston Celtics. I'm a little bit bittersweet about the Celtics' moves at the trade deadline. Yes, they got Evan Fournier, but they also gave up Daniel Tice. This was definitely, I think, a big loss. That was a big loss for the Celtics, but Evan Fournier last night against the Rockets played very well. 23 points in 30 minutes, 7 of 11 from three-point range. Fournier had 7 3-pointers, Logan. But, Celtics have, they're still 1-2 with Fournier. now as a member of the Celtics. So how do you feel about the Celtics moving forward now with Fournier, but they've also lost Tice?
So I feel very similarly to how you described your feelings about the trade deadline for the Boston Celtics. I absolutely adore the Evan Fournier trade, despite losing Daniel Tice. I think Daniel Tice was an elite defensive player, believe it or not. I do believe he was a factor for that team.
And he was a good shooter as well.
I also believe Robert Williams has a chance to step up and also be a very big factor defensively. I think he is just as lethal from an interior standpoint as Daniel Tice could have been. And, nobody talks about it. But this guy, Evan Fournier, after coming out in Orlando this year, was averaging 19.7 points per game.
Yeah, he was amazing.
That is absolutely ridiculous for a dude in, Orlando. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and he was like, well, when you play for a suck team, it's pretty easy. And I said, no, it's not. If you play for a suck team, it's actually harder to score points because you're all the attention.
And also, he had to share the ball with, sorry to interrupt you, I just want to say, he had to share the ball with, Vucevic and Aaron Gordon, so it's not like he was taking all the shots.
That's what I'm saying. He was efficient with how he was efficient with carrying himself, so I think I love that trade. But the one trade that you didn't mention, the person that the Celtics brought in that I wasn't a huge fan of, I've never been a fan of him, I don't really understand the move personally, is bringing in Mo Wagner.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was very disappointed with that move.
I don't really understand the move. To me, it was just kind of Danny Ainge making moves because everybody was talking about him needing size, but I don't think that's the kind of size they need. I mean, he's averaging, I think I saw it was like 2.3 points per game. It's like, I know everything's not about points, but I mean, he's just not very good.
No.
I mean, if anybody remembers watching him in college out in, I believe it was 2017 maybe, when he played for Michigan in the national championship game, he was a lethal scorer, but he came into the NBA and did nothing.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just kind of a useless move where you just cut and catch what you had. I kind of like the roster, and he's not really going to give him any minutes come playoff time.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be an interesting Celtics team going forward. They might have to be competing in that play-in tournament in order to get that playoff spot, Logan. So we'll see what goes on later on in the season with the Celtics. Another big move revolving around a Magic player, Logan, this time around Orlando star Nikola Vucevic, who was traded to the Chicago Bulls. And I really think this was a big move by Chicago. I actually think Chicago was another winner at the trade deadline. The Bulls get a lot of size with Vucevic as well as and they gave up Wendell Carter Jr., so they get a lot of size with Vucevic. You still have Zach LaVine, who I think can really be a superstar in this league. The Bulls definitely can. I think they sent a message at the trade deadline that they're here for the now. They're here to compete now. How do you feel? And Vucevic has played well. He's last night 16 points in 29 minutes, 24 points March 31st in Phoenix against the Suns. So he's been stepping up and playing well for the Bulls thus far. He's been averaging about 21 points per game in 4 games, and he's been averaging about 31 minutes. So how do you feel about Chicago now and their playoff aspirations moving forward?
Yeah, no, I love the moves by Chicago. I believe that Nikola Vucevic, similar to Evan Fournier, is just a lethal player that doesn't give enough credit for the position and the work that he does interior-wise. The one thing that I will say kind of concerns me about the trade is Nikola Vucevic is one of those guys that we'll call an old-fashioned player. That doesn't mean he can't shoot the ball. That doesn't mean he's Shaq where he can't hit free throws or anything like that. He has worked to improve that, but if you think about it nowadays, you got to be a really solid shooter. It can be considered a really great player, and this guy just isn't that dude. Don't get me wrong, he's a great back-to-basket player, and he makes up for it, but to me, come playoff time, if you can't spread the floor for your team, you're not as valuable as you could be. So to me, until Zach LaVine averages over 30 a game, the Chicago Bulls team's playoff aspirations to get past the first and second round is going to be troublesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to consider the fact that they're not going to be a top 4 seed in the East.
No way.
You think that they make it, they're going to be a 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Meaning they're going to play Brooklyn, the Philadelphia Sixers, the Bucks of the world. They're going to be playing those teams, and if you really are going to sit here and tell me that this team is going to compete with a Giannis, with an Embiid, with a James Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. I'm sorry, but you're smoking some blunts. I'm telling you right now, because that's not happening.
Yeah.
That just will not. So, to me, you can, I think it's a great move, but I don't think it's enough to put them over that peak, per se.
Yeah, I'll definitely stand by that as well, Logan. Bulls definitely going to have to make some more moves, but this is certainly a step in the right direction for Chicago. I want to talk about two more trades, Logan. LaMarcus Aldridge has been taking a lot of heat these last few days for his decision to go to the Brooklyn Nets. He did play his first game in Brooklyn this past Thursday against the Hornets. 29 minutes, 11 points, 4 for 10 from the field. He actually hit a 3 as well, Logan. Do you think that LaMarcus Aldridge should have taken his talents to another team, or was this the right move for him to go to the Nets?
I mean, for LaMarcus Aldridge himself, it was a good move, but for every other fan that isn't a bandwagon Brooklyn Nets fan, it doesn't really make a difference. I hate to say it, but LaMarcus Aldridge is washed. He's past his time. He's good for, 10, 11 points every other night or so, but he's not really going to make an impact on this team. I think he's a ring chaser, just like Blake Griffin, signing for the bare minimum to go win a ring. To me, you can, talk about LaMarcus Aldridge being a formerly great out in San Antonio and Portland, but he's just not that same guy anymore.
I would say,
I just don't think he's going to have the impact that we can expect him that a lot of people are going to expect him to have in Brooklyn.
I'll be honest with you, Logan. I can definitely see your take on LaMarcus Aldridge, but with Blake Griffin, I feel like the Nets actually needed Blake Griffin, not for scoring, but as just an actual body just to put in the paint and some size. Because before Blake Griffin, they were, they really didn't have, other than DeAndre Jordan, Nicholas Claxton. I like Nicholas Claxton. He'll get some good minutes, but they needed another big guy to contest with guys in the paint. And I feel like Blake Griffin was a big pickup. But then once they signed Aldridge, and then that's when my eyebrows started to raise. So I was just curious on your thoughts of Blake Griffin signing with the Nets here. Do you think that is actually an important move for them, or is that more ring chasing from Blake Griffin?
Well, from Blake Griffin's point of view, he's just ring chasing. If you're Blake Griffin, of course you want to go to Brooklyn. You want to go play with Kevin Durant. You want to go play with James Harden. You want to go play with Kyrie Irving, and you want to win a ring while you're doing it. Now, from the Nets, I think it's a pretty smart decision because if you think about it, they've already built a superstar team.
Yeah.
This team right now, everybody healthy is getting out the East. They could play, 3-on-5 and probably still get out of the East. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Unless you're against the Sixers.
You could expect 30 or 40 from 2 out of the 3, so that's the 100 points already. So you can probably send that out the East 3-on-5, but then you add a young guy who's aggressive and a very underrated defender in Claxton. And then you want to add Blake Griffin. I think the Nets made a very intelligent move by bringing Blake Griffin in. And the fact that they don't have to pay him is pretty awesome because they're paying him the league minimum.
Yeah.
So I think that is a tremendously helpful move for the Nets. I think it's pretty underrated, but I think Blake Griffin is definitely ring chasing. I think he could have gotten more money elsewhere. I think he could have, made it a little bit more competitive elsewhere. But he just kind of, unfortunately, he's going to go to Brooklyn. He's going to sit back and he's going to watch Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving go to work, and he's going to backdoor cut and he's going to get 2s here and there. He'll score 10 points a game. It kind of frustrates me, but at the same time, it's business. That's how business works.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true. But Victor Oladipo's business just got a lot more exciting. He got last trade we're going to talk about here, Logan. Traded from the Houston Rockets to the Miami Heat. I love this move, Logan. I'm going to be honest with you. Now you have another guard to pair up with Jimmy Butler. You still have guys like Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, still there. Obviously, Bam Adebayo. I think the Heat just improved with this trade of Victor Oladipo. He played this past Thursday in his first game with the Heat against the Golden State Warriors. Only 6 points, 2 for 8 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. But he's definitely, I would think, is going to play a lot better than that moving forward. So how do you feel, Logan, about Oladipo to the Heat? I think this definitely helps the Heat's chances of competing with those Eastern Conference powerhouses.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there, but to me, the Heat didn't need a forward as much as they needed a big guy. I mean, they have Bam Adebayo, don't get me wrong, but from the forward position, they've got Jimmy Butler, who, believe it or not, is actually having a tremendous season. He's having averaging 21 points a game, 7 assists and 7 rebounds, which is a really solid performance from a guy who, has his prime, and he's just performing when it matters. But they've already got Tyler Hero. They've already got, they've got a lot of guys that are valuable. I don't know if Oladipo was exactly the piece that they needed. I think it's a great pickup, but I think they should have used their assets elsewhere in getting maybe a guy to help out Bam Adebayo in the interior.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. They definitely still need to continue in a pursuit of another big man. But do you think overall, Logan, that Miami can have a better chance of competing with those Eastern Conference powerhouse teams? I definitely don't think that they're going to go back to the finals currently with the roster that they have, but I definitely think they can take a team like Philly to maybe, 6 games, or a team like Milwaukee to possibly 7 games. So how do you feel about, Miami now with Oladipo, and them being competitive with those teams, those 3 elite teams of the East?
I think definitely they have a better chance. You can add Oladipo to any team, and they'd have a better chance, per se, percentage-wise, of, taking a team more games or having a chance to beat them. But, I mean, they're still, to me, you said 7 games. I don't know if I would put them that far with the Bucks. The Bucks are just, Drew Holiday is having an amazing season. I mean, they have so much depth. I look at them kind of like Utah, but they have Giannis.
Yeah, but they still haven't proved them. They still haven't proved themselves in the playoffs, Logan. Don't forget about that, though.
True enough. I completely agree with you there. But I mean, again, then you talk about a team like Brooklyn. They're not running tables with Brooklyn. That's not happening. They won't take them past 5. To me, I don't think right now any team in the East is getting past 6 with Brooklyn. It's just not going to happen. The Sixers, Embiid will drop 40 each game, and that's the length of it. The Bucks, Giannis will drop 40 each game, and that's the length of it. Mm-hmm. But the Heat have a chance. If they can get up to like a top 4 seed in the East, they've got a chance to compete.
Yeah.
Get to like maybe the semis, maybe. If they get anywhere, if they land anywhere 6, 7, or 8, they're done. They're out of the first round.
Yeah.
They're not going to. They can run the tables, but they're not going to beat Philadelphia.
No.
They're not going to beat the Bucks, I don't think. That's my opinion. I give them 6 games. I just don't think they're going to beat the Bucks, and they're definitely not beating Brooklyn.
Yeah, the only reason I'm giving them 7 for the Bucks is because I've not seen the Bucks prove themselves in the playoffs. I mean, you're probably more correct, but I just think I would have to give a Heat a chance here, just the fact that I haven't seen Milwaukee. Other than that conference finals run back in 2019, they really have not made that final push in the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from there, but I mean, even then, you talk about wanting to play, coming at a 5 seed. Personally, this is just my opinion. I mean, I'm probably biased, of course, but I wouldn't want to play Boston in the first round. Never, because Boston never really performs in the regular season. I mean, even though they've been stacked, or not stacked, but they've had a lot of depth, and they've been really solid the past couple of years. They've never come in at, a 2 or 3 seed. They've always been a 4 or 5. I mean, last year I believe they were a 4 seed, right? Last year
they were a 3. They were 3 last year.
Were they a 3 last year?
3 left. Last year they were a 3. 2019 they were 4. With Kyrie's last year they were a 4 seed.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying though. You look at that Boston team. I would match them up with a Philadelphia. I mean, I'd take Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to beat Embiid in that squad. I mean, the Celtics team on paper looks really good at some of the names that you can see on there, but yet they're like an 8 seed. So, I mean, if I'm in Miami, there's like 2 teams that I don't want to play in the first round. I don't want to play Brooklyn, and I don't want to play Boston. I'd give them a better chance to beat, the Bucks than I would Boston, believe it or not, because the Bucks just aren't as deep. They've got a couple guys that can play, but Boston is like 8 guys deep. And especially with the addition of Fournier. So,
yes.
To me, the Heat have a chance to get, out of the semis, out of the first round. But the East is just loaded this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to see how Victor Oladipo will blend in with this Miami Heat team. I just love having Victor Oladipo and Jimmy Butler on the same squad. Those are 2 guys both with tremendous chips on their shoulders, really excited to see what the Heat can do come playoff time. Logan, last topic for the NBA before we move on to a little bit of March Madness here. Golden State Warriors. I want to talk about them for a little bit because, they've really just completely fallen off the map. Logan, they played the Toronto Raptors last night, lost by a total of 53 points. That's right, 53 points. They were down by as many as 61 points. I thought, the Raptors obviously won a title 2 years ago, but they are not that good this year. After that win, they're only 19-30. The Warriors are now 23-26. We heard Draymond say, a couple weeks ago that he's the best defensive player ever to play. And then a few more days ago, he said that he's not very motivated for the play-in games, which I think is a good thing that he said, because he's basically setting the standard high for the Warriors. Now, in this game last night against the Raptors, Logan, Steph Curry, neither Steph or Draymond Green played last night. The highest scorer in that game was Andrew Wiggins with 15 points in 26 minutes. But this was just an awful night for Golden State fans and the Warriors players. Only 3 players in double-figure scoring last night for Golden State. As I mentioned, Logan, they're 23-26. They lost to the Heat this past Thursday. They lost to the Hawks last Friday, 124-108. And they got blown out by the Kings last week as well, 141-119. So, Logan, what are your thoughts, on the Warriors? Because I was saying, this could definitely be a team that, competes for a play-in game this year. I think when they get Clay back, they're definitely going to be one of the top dogs of the West. That's if, the Jazz don't fall off the map. But specifically for this year, their season's not over, obviously. They're 23-26. But how confident are you in the Warriors now overall? I mean, especially with that 53-point demolition from last night.
This Warriors team needs somebody to help Steph score. I mean, Wiggins getting 15 last night is embarrassing.
Isn't that Klay Thompson, though, that guy that can help them, though? Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But, Klay Thompson is a great shooter. I would never, and I don't think any true NBA analyst would ever call Klay Thompson a scorer. He is a shooter.
Yeah.
He's an elite shooter, and he can give you 20 to 30. But he is a shooter.
Yeah.
And when I say scorer, I mean a 3-level scorer that will take you to the basket. He'll dunk over you. He'll hit a fadeaway. He'll shoot threes. And there's not many of those guys in the league, but the Warriors need one desperately.
Yeah.
Because Klay, like I said, is a shooter. I give him a lot of credit for that. Draymond is a really solid, playmaker, but they need a scorer. And whether that ends up being, James Wiseman in a few years, but, I mean, he had 9 points.
Yeah.
9 against a team that doesn't have a true center.
Right.
Because nobody's looking at, Chris Boucher in the Raptors and thinking, that's a center right there. Nobody's saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just embarrassing.
And this was,
you're the number 2 pick in the draft.
And this was without, the Raptors didn't even have Kyle Lowry on the floor last night.
I mean, Gary Trent had 24 points.
Yeah.
Now, here's what's probably the most embarrassing thing for me about this Warriors game. You ready for this? Gary Trent's plus-minus was plus 54.
Wow, yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's like an AAU game. I mean, Jordan Poole had 10 points in 29 minutes of play on 3 of 15 shooting. I mean, good Lord. I honestly feel I feel so bad for Steph Curry.
I mean, I
feel so bad for him.
I thought Kelly Oubre Jr. was going to be like a positive acquisition too, but he's really just this whole season, he's been in a bad shooting slump. Only 9 points in 18 minutes, Logan. Kent Bazemore, 15 minutes, only 3 points for him. I thought he'd be, a decent scorer still, but, he's struggled as well this season. So, I mean, do you have faith in this Warriors bench going, moving forward? Even this, because most of these guys are pretty young still, like Damian Lee, Eric Pascal, Nico Mannion. Like, these are young dudes.
I mean, yeah, but to me, as of right now, based on what they've showed me, I have zero faith in this team. Because the issue is it's not like in Cleveland where, when you talk about Darius Garland having, I believe it was 6 points, he only shot 4 or 5 shots.
Yeah.
These guys are taking 6 shots and making one of them. I mean, I could play in the NBA and hit more shots than that. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be hard on them, but, I mean, I'm looking at the bottom 3 or 4 guys. Kent Bazemore, Damian Lee, and Michael Mulder.
Yeah.
They took a combined 14 shots and made 3 of them. Combined.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's no hope. At this rate, there is absolutely no hope. Juan Toscano Anderson was a starter on this team. He played 11 minutes, and he didn't take a shot, and he didn't score.
Mm-hmm.
His plus-minus in 11 minutes was -20.
Yeah.
There is no hope for this team at this rate.
Well, I mean...
The way that this, at least for the bench. The bench has no chance unless they make moves. They have to do something.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a big wake-up call for, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, maybe to advocate, along with Klay Thompson, and maybe just get, like you said, Logan, another possible, a quality scorer in there. I like Andrew Wiggins. I think he had a lot of upside, but it's, again, that inconsistency factor that we were talking about. So we'll see what the Warriors do moving forward. I think Steve Kerr is definitely going to have, if he's not had it already, a long sit-down with this squad, because, someone with the basketball intelligence of Steve Kerr is not going to take a loss like this lightly at all. Let's talk about final basketball topic here, Logan. Let's talk a little bit about March Madness. We're coming down to the Final Four. It's today. Houston taking on Baylor today at about 5:15. Then 8:30, we have UCLA going up against Gonzaga. Gonzaga has just been doing what they've wanted. They've been pummeling through the tournament so far. Destroyed USC by a final score of 85-66. UCLA barely defeated Michigan 51-49. Logan, I'm very excited to see these Final Four matchups. Let's go talk about Houston and Baylor. Now, Houston, this is the first time they've been to the Final Four since Hakeem Olajuwon went there. So, they've been a great story all season long. They're taking on a Baylor team, that is, still ready to compete. They are a 1 seed. So how do you expect this Houston-Baylor game to go tonight?
I'm not going to lie. I had Baylor and Ohio State in the Final Four, and I think Baylor is going to take this one in a tight one. I got a lot of respect for Houston guard Quentin Grimes. I think he's an elite scorer in this league. I mean, he's averaging 18 points and 6 boards as a guard on this team. I think it's a very top-heavy Houston team.
Yeah.
But you have 5 guards, and I'm telling you, 5 guards on Baylor that are NBA material. You've got Jared Butler, Maceo T, Davian Mitchell. You have so many elite guards on that Baylor team. I just think it's going to be a run-and-gun game. I expect a very high-scoring affair between these two teams, but I don't see how this Baylor group is going to lose this game to Houston.
Yeah, I mean, Baylor, I had a friend, we're talking at lunch, he has Baylor winning the whole thing. I have Gonzaga winning the total tournament. I think they're just stacked, but they're going up against a UCLA team that still has a lot of fight in them. They defeated the 1 seed Michigan, 1 seed Michigan by only 2 points. So that they're going to have a lot of fight in them. Your thoughts on this UCLA-Gonzaga game, Logan? Who do you have going to the tournament championship?
I mean, good Lord, I don't know how anybody takes UCLA over Gonzaga. I hate to say it, and many UCLA fans, I'm sorry, but you got to face the truth. Gonzaga is going to win the chip this year. They are just absolutely loaded. Drew Timme, Corey Kispert, Jalen Suggs, J.A.I., Andrew Nembhard. I could go on and on and on.
Yep.
But if you are going to win this game, UCLA is going to win this game. The only chance that they have is if Kentucky transfer Johnny Juzang absolutely kills them. He's got to have 40 for them to have a chance to win.
Yeah.
Johnny Juzang was lethal in the Elite Eight game against Michigan. He had 28 of 51 points.
Yeah.
He has to be that and better tonight to have a chance to beat Gonzaga. He's got to have help. He's got to have help from, Chris Smith. He's got to have help from these guys. He's got to have help from Jules Bernard, who's, been a little bit inconsistent throughout the tournament, but he's got to have help because, I mean, unless, Drew Timme and Corey Kispert, break their ankles, during the game, UCLA is going to get smoked today.
Yeah.
But UCLA, Johnny Juzang, don't rule them out. Anything can happen in March.
Yeah, it's called March Madness for a reason. So we'll get you updated next week with the tournament championship. We'll have a champion crowned. Houston, Baylor tonight at 5:14 to be exact, and then UCLA, Gonzaga later tonight at 8:34 p.m. That will be the tip-off. That concludes all our basketball news for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Logan, we're going to talk about baseball here real quick. We're going to dive a little bit into the Cleveland Indians season, which began on Thursday, unfortunately, with a loss. I don't know about you, Logan. April Fools, I woke up and it was snowing outside, and I thought that was, maybe foolish enough that we had snow in April. But what was even worse was when I was cold, I was in my house, and I saw the Indians' final score, and they lost to the Detroit Tigers 3-2. Now, Detroit was up 3-0 after 2 innings, Logan. The Indians then scored 2 runs in the 9th inning, but at that point it was just too little too late. Your thoughts on this Indians game, Logan, because, this was a low-scoring affair, and the Indians didn't get blown out or anything, but they also gave up 2 runs alone in the first inning, so, the defense wasn't there to start off. So how do you kind of analyze this Indians season opener?
I give a lot of credit to Shane Bieber, who ended up with, I believe, 12 strikeouts in this game.
Yeah.
He had a very strong performance, and I've heard a lot of people talking about, maybe he's going to be one of the favorites for the Cy Young Award this year. And I think that there's a big chance for this kid to have a very strong season, but he's going to have to because, the Indians pitching group, it's a solid group, but it's not the deepest group in the MLB.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of work to do with that group. It's a young core, but Shane Bieber's at the head of it all up there. The bats, Roberto Perez had a big homer, late in that one, but they've got to keep on working this season because, the bats are young. Jose Ramirez has got to have a big year. Again, Roberto Perez at catcher, he's been there for a while. He's got to play well. This game, it was a battle, but, there's going to be some consistency to come out. Again, pitching has been a bit of a struggle depth-wise. They're very top-heavy. Top-heavy, but we got to see some improvement for some of the young bats coming out. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how the Indians handle this 3-game series in Detroit. The overall upcoming schedule for the Indians, they're going to be in Detroit their next 2 games. Today at 1:10 p.m., so as of right now, live at about 15 minutes or so, Indians will be playing the Tigers in Detroit. Tomorrow as well, same start time, 1:10 p.m. will be the first pitch. Indians and Tigers from Comerica Park in Detroit. The Indians, after that game tomorrow, will then return home for a matchup for 5 straight games at home. They'll be playing against the Kansas City Royals, and then they'll see the Detroit Tigers once again. So Indians are going to see the Detroit Tigers a lot in their opening portion of the season. So we'll see how they kind of make that adjustment, almost like a playoff series with the Royals for a couple of games there to break it off. Also, Logan, I want to talk about Francisco Lindor's big contract that he signed with the New York Mets. It's a 10-year, $341 million deal, Logan. Obviously, for the longest of times, we've considered, as Indians fans, Francisco Lindor to be the face of the franchise in Cleveland. Now he takes his talents to New York and signs this massive deal with the Mets. Do you think, Logan, first I'll ask you this, is Francisco Lindor worth that money? And also, do you think that he will make a big impact with the Mets moving forward?
I think it is going to be a big deal for the Mets. I think it's a big contract. If you can believe, as you mentioned, 10 years. He's only 27 years old. I know it sounds kind of old. He'll be with them until he's 37 based on the contract, but I mean, he's an elite shortstop. I think, for the Indians, he was the face of the franchise forever. I mean, I even, when I went to the MLB All-Star game, I got a Francisco Lindor jersey. Everybody had a Francisco Lindor jersey if you had a Cleveland Indians jersey.
Yeah.
It was Lindor or it was Ramirez.
Right.
Everybody had one of those jerseys. He was at the face of the franchise for Cleveland for some time. On all those playoff runs in 2016 when they lost to the Cubs in the World Series, he was the guy. But the fact that he leaves and goes to the Mets and signs this mammoth contract, as you mentioned, worth $341 million, is kind of a stab in the back. It hurts, but he is going to make a major impact with the Mets. I think that team is going to be very good in a couple of years. I mean, they're all right now, but I think they're going to be really, really good in a couple of years.
How do you think also the addition of Carrasco on the Mets will help them? You obviously have a quality backup pitcher as well. What do you think that's going to bring the Mets in the next few years?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, he's a very quality pitcher, but I wouldn't call him any more than that. He's going to add a lot of depth there, so you might be able to go a little bit deeper into the bullpen. But I don't think he's going to add as much as Lindor is going to be able to add into the fielding group.
Yeah,
he's definitely, like I said, add depth, but I wouldn't say he's going to be, a 10-year, $341 million kind of contract guy,
Right.
But he's going to add some important and needed depth that, at this point in time, Cleveland could desperately use in their bullpen.
Yes, and speaking of the Mets, Logan, they'll begin their season this upcoming Monday. They'll be in Philadelphia taking on the Phillies for 3 straight games. Let's talk a little bit about overall MLB teams. Logan, who do you have winning both the American and National League, and who do you have winning the World Series come October?
I mean, in the AL, Tampa Bay is right there. Tampa Bay might be that team.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay is one of the best teams. They were really strong last year, but you can also make an argument for the Yankees. The Yankees are always in it. The star power of Aaron Judge is, he's really good, and he's so young. In the NL, the Dodgers, clearly. I mean, there's not a lot of teams in the NL. There's a couple good teams in the National League, but I mean, the Dodgers have to be it for me. I mean, they're just Mookie Betts, maybe the best player in baseball. He's one of them for sure. Cody Bellinger, one of the hottest bats last year in baseball. There's just so many guys, but to me, I'm going to have to take the Dodgers in the Rays.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with you there, and especially they're going to have a chip on their shoulder from last year, and Tampa Bay, Logan, will they've already started out their season 2-0. And both of those were road games as well. So super excited to see how this MLB season plays out. And Logan, that actually concludes our episode of this latest episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining me this week, Logan. I really love talking basketball with you, love talking baseball with you. This was a lot of fun. I'll see you next week. And have a terrific spring break. Have a very happy Easter. And looking forward to talking to you next week.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Logan. And ladies and gentlemen, I just got off the phone with Logan Purcell. Once again, did a phenomenal job. Love talking with Logan every single week. And we'll be back with you next week because I don't have to attend a wedding next weekend because I'll be on spring break. So if you are crying right now because you're thinking, Darius, this is the best podcast episode I've ever listened to. Please don't end it. I want this to go on forever. Well, guess what? Wipe those tears away because even though this episode's ending, you can still find so much more of my work in so many different places. So I'll talk about it right now for you. If you're on NordoniaHills.News, make sure you go on over to the Contributors tab. My name is the second one down. It's Darius Sethna, spelled DARAYUSSETHNA. Once you find that, click on my name. You'll be able to see all my work with the Nordonia Hills Media Network. You'll see previous episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show. You'll see some articles I've written. If you keep scrolling down, I did some player bios with some athletes. I've done a couple of articles on the Cavs. And you'll be able to see my play-by-play broadcasts of Nordonia Knights boys basketball on NordoniaHills.News. You can also find the Cleveland Sports Show on my Twitter account. All my work is also posted on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Nordonia Sports, or you can just type in my name in the search bar, Darius Sethna, spelled DARAYUSSETHNA. I'm also very happy to tell you that you can find all of my episodes for the Cleveland Sports Show on the NordoniaHills.News YouTube channel. So if you ever find yourself on YouTube and you're craving some Cleveland sports, well, then just head on to the NordoniaHills.News YouTube page, and then you'll see all my episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show on there as well. I'm also very happy to announce that the Cleveland Sports Show, for a very long time, almost over a year now, has been on Spotify. So if you're on the go, wherever you are, anywhere in the world, you can access the Cleveland Sports Show on the go, on your phone, on your iPad. As long as you have Spotify, then you have the Cleveland Sports Show. Just type in my name in the Spotify search bar, spelled DARAYUSSETHNA, Darius Sethna, and you'll be able to see all my episodes to the Cleveland Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my latest episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Once again, special thanks to Logan Purcell for all of his dedication and all of his phenomenal analysis in another successful week of our podcast. And thank you to all you, the viewers, for taking some time out of your day to listen to Logan and I speak our minds on Cleveland sports. We're so happy to have all of you along for this Cleveland sports journey. Have a very, very happy Easter, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful spring break. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and we'll see you next week for another edition of the Cleveland Sports Show.